morning, good afternoon. Welcome to episode 67 of the Leading IT podcast. Today we're going to talk about the consolidation of the cybersecurity industry, and we're joined by John Milionis from Fortinet and the Empyrean cybersecurity lead, David Stevenson. This podcast, if you're new, is for Australian IT leaders to stay up to date with the latest trends in AI, cybersecurity, power platform, cloud and infrastructure, strategy and leadership. And your hosts are myself, Josh Rubens. I'm the CEO at Empyrean IT, and Tom Layden, who's the CIO from Longview. So we tackle the IT landscape from both sides of the client-vendor paradigm with pragmatic and actionable advice. So g'day, Tom. How you going?
G'day, Josh. Yes, good to speak to you again, as always, and good to hear more about this particular topic. It's relevant to many of the people who listen to our podcast. So I'm looking forward to getting into that. Should we jump into some news, though, mate? Have you got anything exciting to talk about?
I do. So in the next 10 days, I'm going to be turning 50.
I shouldn't laugh. I should not laugh. Commiserations, mate. Is that the right word for it?
It is. So many, probably half my life in the IT industry.
Too late to change, maybe not.
Yeah, that's probably why we've all got so much hair, I think. But no, it's the big 50.
Congratulations.
And still feeling young and energized and excited for the next 5 to 10 years, whatever that may bring. And I know your birthday's close to mine, Tom, but I think you're a year ahead.
1 year ahead, edging, leading the way there, Josh. Less said about that, the better, I reckon.
Yeah, excellent. All right, do you want to kick on to the news?
Mate, I've just got a few things. One thing that popped up in my feed was Intel. Intel are in danger of being bought out. Have you seen that? Their share price has crashed. Everyone's nodding their head yet. We've all seen it. Who would have thought, this is a mega firm years ago, and their share price has crashed. Obviously, not very attractive compared to NVIDIA. Missed the AI trend, missed the mobile chip trend, blah, blah, blah. Looking to get bought out probably by Broadcom. What happens to them after that? Nothing, I suspect. They just go back into history as it has been.
Yeah, I think they brought in Pat Gelsinger, the VMware CEO, to try and fix it. And, it didn't work, which is, he was a great CEO. So if he couldn't do it, I'm not sure who could. So since our last episode, there's been the whole big DeepSeek kerfuffle, which hit the the stock industry, the stock market, like a meteor, including NVIDIA, Microsoft, a lot of the stocks that everyone knows that I've been holding. But there's certainly been a lot of movement since that initial news of it's coming out. So a lot of governments are banning DeepSeek. So the Australian government, the news is most Australian states and territories have banned DeepSeek on all government devices, and other countries are doing the same thing. So I think
it's interesting.
That may limit the spread of its use.
I think been looking into that as well, and so once you get over the fact that whatever it's Chinese, the other interesting fact is about a fifth of the price of ChatGPT, and it's whatever O3 model or whatever they're up to. So there's a really interesting use case for it still. So you can run it internally on your internal servers. So there's a really compelling story to use it for low risk, where security isn't a major issue, or you're not worried if the Chinese government can see what you're doing, which is, I think there's a lot of AI use cases that actually it doesn't matter, and you can save a lot of money. So I think on one level it's really interesting from a competition point of view, but then on the other level there is a sovereign risk associated with it, so you've got to be aware of that. I'm still amazed though, Josh. A lot of people still ban ChatGPT from their work. They just block it outright.
Yeah.
Are you seeing that as well?
There's a bit. There's definitely the Microsoft Copilot starting to gain traction.
Yeah, right. Just use that.
So, they want to use something that's secure and protected. So that's definitely what I think we're seeing. And people are, as Dave will attest to, doing a lot of projects around helping people put the data protections in place so that they can use Purview, Copilot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your news?
No, that's it for me. So I was going to start talking about DeepSeek as well, but you've stolen my thunder as usual.
I knew I would. Well, you normally get me. All right, so I've got two bits that are very pertinent to our conversation today, and one that is slightly less. So there's been two significant acquisitions in the cybersecurity space in the last month. So Arctic Wolf acquired Cylance, which was interesting. So, they've got the sort of the premier SOC SIEM product in the market with respect to John will argue, but that's the perception out there. And then now they're adding, the EDR, XDR. So, so customers seem to really like them. So it sort of makes sense that, hey, we've got you, and instead of integrating with CrowdStrike or Defender, well now, now it's going to be called the Aurora Protect. So Dave, did you have a comment on that? Did you want to make any comments on that, or John?
No, I guess from our side, it's just interesting to see. Normally, we have the EDR, XDR platforms move into the SIEM space, where this is more around the other way. That Arctic Wolf's always been a very strong player in the SOC SIEM, and now they've gone out, acquired the XDR platform, and bringing it back to the endpoint.
Yeah, and again, this is our theme for today, is around this consolidation of the cybersecurity industry. And the other one was the Sophos 859 acquisition of XDR specialist SecureWorks. So again, they're trying to move into that XDR offering as well, even though they had something, but they want to acquire a much, a better product. Again, same thing, John. I don't know if you wanted to comment on that. Just seems to be the trend at the moment. So the other bit is that Microsoft has now launched Copilot Chat for Business, which is a free service. So you can bring in your business data. So it's not like the paid Microsoft 365 Copilot. It's a free service for anyone who has E1, but you can use their agents on a pay-as-you-go model. So if you start automating tasks with it, they're just going to make you pay as you go. So I think that'll be interesting for a lot of customers, but it's not like the paid M365 one where it has integration into all your apps, Excel, Outlook, etc., etc. So that's a new announcement, and I think pretty interesting for customers who want to give it a go without forking out $30 or $40 a month.
Yeah, I was looking into that as well, and the consensus is that Microsoft is going to drown us out with their AI solution, so that there's a lot of offerings out there with Claude and ChatGPT and blah blah blah. I think what they're trying to say is that just use ours, use ours. They're all kind of similar, like from an end user point of view. A lot of people argue that point, but they're all similar from a business user point of view. So if Microsoft's the default option, they're trying to own that space. Just like they did with Teams, you just smash it out there. Everyone argues about Slack or Google, but you end up just using whatever corporate supply. So, yeah, no surprise.
All right, so I just want to welcome John Milionis to the Leading IT podcast. So John is a cybersecurity industry veteran. He's currently the Director of Channel and Distribution at Fortinet for Australia. Previously worked at similar roles at Zscaler, ForcePoint, and Riverbed, and Cinefer. If any of you remember Cinefer, I think you were acquired by Palo Alto. So he's got a really broad and in-depth view of the cybersecurity landscape in Australia. So welcome to the podcast, John. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So let's start with this consolidation trend in the cybersecurity industry. So what do you think's driving this?
I think there's a couple of things, starting at the customer level, which is always the key thing for partners. Obviously, I work in the partner segment, managing distribution and channel, but it's all about the challenges we're solving. So I think simply put, customers need to do more with less. So funding envelopes are getting smaller, be it in the private sector or government. Yet with all of that, customers still need to do more. So there's still significant challenges around reducing cyber risk and technology risk more broadly, but also having the agility to give them the launch initiatives that, customers are looking to do. So, still a lot of application transformation, a lot of network transformation, shifting workloads to the cloud. Obviously, you touched on AI, running AI. So, that's the problem statement. And, when you think about reducing risk and reducing costs, but yet needing to do more, for customers, identify ways to do that. And a key part is, when you start looking at the technology ecosystem and think through some of the challenges that customers have, and I think it's quite common, and some of these are similar challenges to partners, a sprawling technology stack comprised of, multiple vendors and obviously, and sometimes competing vendors within the same stack. So, customers have been known to have two or three of something, perhaps a couple of Gartner leaders and one of the emerging vendors in that space. So technology sprawl, partners sprawl in their ecosystem, really significant challenges with contract mismatch in terms of maturity. So, parts of the estate all just rolling over at different times. The challenges of point vendors shooting the stars out and moving the Gartner top right really quickly. Challenging, the status quo that customers have invested in. So consolidation's occurring, driven by the customer need to essentially start taking complexity and cost out. And then, of course, vendors align themselves to that thematic as well. We're a listed company, as many of our competitors are, if not their VC funded. So, everyone has to grow. So it's only natural that vendors start adding capability east, west of whatever landing point they come into the customer ecosystem. So that has additional confusion as well.
Yeah. So David, the alternative is go best of breed for everything. Are you starting to see a change there, or what are you seeing out there?
Very much so. I think sort of 2018, it was go with the best of breed for each individual technology. Sort of over COVID, with budgets shrinking and coming back in, we're seeing very much a scale back in. And, we see that a lot with the Microsoft stack. We see that a lot with the Fortinet stack, where people had gone out and selected independent products. As renewals are coming up now and as products have been growing internally, people are coming back to the partners that they enjoy working with the technologies that they enjoy working with, and reducing that sprawl back to sort of single or just a couple of vendors instead of that multi-vendor spread.
Yeah, and Tom, as a customer, what's your thought on this?
Yeah, there's two concerns here. Well, there's two good things. I mean, first of all, you said contract consolidation. You're dealing with one account manager. You're dealing with one roadmap. Makes a lot of sense. But you're also focusing in on one vendor, and you got to hope that you've picked the right vendor, because they might be good on 3/4 of the tools, but they might be really bad on one element. And it does your head in, because you can't now then rip them out and replace it with that spot kind of targeted vendor. So it makes sense, but there's a risk and a challenge associated with that. And then most people just end up shrugging their shoulders, saying, "We'll live with that for all the other benefits and the pricing discounts and blah blah blah." But it does mean you just have to do that trade off, which can be really frustrating.
So is this a bit? SMB mid-market versus enterprise? I mean, is that a bit, if you're enterprise and you've got a big team, maybe you'd have more, more tolerance for more products versus your SMB and you're short-staffed, so we'll go with a platform.
Maybe, but also, the big organizations are always looking to cut costs and simplify things as well, right? I mean, it doesn't seem to matter. I mean, I think if you're an SMB and you can get more capability in a single license, that's unreal.
Yeah.
But I just find, the big guys, they all tend to consolidate.
Yeah. So, John, I mean, who do you see your main competitors? Is it Microsoft? Is it Palo? Is it these other guys? What's the landscape like from your view?
Yeah, it's a really competitive environment at the moment. And if I was just looking at some data recently from Catalyst, and they were asserting that by 2027 there might be sort of 4 super platforms around, from some of the names you've just mentioned. So when we look at who we compete against, it's everybody. You mentioned before, and I started in sort of layer 7 visibility application performance, and then went through to network performance at Riverbed, and did some time in DLP, and went to a market leader in SSE at the time at Zscaler. It was top ranked, and at Fortinet, it's got a really nice portfolio. I think the challenge for customers is that the consolidation occurs and the big get bigger. So, Intel's worth 100 bill, and it was worth, multiples of 5, 6, 700 bill at its peak. So companies come and go, and if you miss the innovation, your share price slides very quickly. We've been fortunate at Fortinet that, our founders have a vision, have invested well. The company's really stable financially, so it's allowing us to continue to grow that platform. So I think what happens, Josh, is that, when I came into technology with Cinefer being acquired by Palo Alto, vendor can start very quickly. So take Wiz, and really quick growth, shoots to Gartner top right. Market leading customers that are right at the edge and happy to be the pioneers, adopt quickly. That window shuts really quickly within 2 to 3 years typically, and then everyone else that's kind of adjacent to that landing spot, every other vendor that is, very quickly develops capability. So, for instance, if we take Fortinet, we certainly weren't first to SASE, but now, we're seeing really strong take up of that now annual report, and, double digit 20% plus growth is coming at us. And now we're encroaching on the traditional leaders that might have been SSE, right, as opposed to SASE, as Gartner's coining it, universal SASE. So I think, over the next couple of years, it's going to be a challenge for customers to choose which vendors to work with. To Tom's point, is the capability? I think you'll always have best of breed is going to give you the best outcome for a particular technology outcome you're seeking or problem you have. There's no doubt about that. But then the question becomes: are the fast followers, or are those that have been in your ecosystem that are developing that capability? Do they give you enough to say, well, the core parts of that vendor that you've had in your ecosystem for quite some time can now add other bows, to their capability. So it's a really tough one. I certainly think that the big are getting bigger. Consolidations are happening. Fortinet continues to consolidate and acquire companies. We acquired NextDLP, we acquired Lacework. We acquired a number of organisations in the last 12 months as our competitors. So then, once again, customers need to decide, what do we do here? Who do we go with? How do we handle it? What does the roadmap look like? So what's the vendor presenting to the customer and the partner? And, how does that help solve challenges? So I think you're going to see more and more consolidation. The big get bigger, and getting to the Canalys research I saw, they had 10 vendors listed in there, including, Microsoft, Fortinet, Cisco, Palo, CrowdStrike, the usual suspects. And, they're saying sort of, 4 are going to become the sort of super platforms, 3 years from today.
Yeah. So, Dave, if we're talking to a customer, you're helping. I mean, how do you help them decide which way to go? Is it what you've got current investment in? What do you I'm interested
Really, it
here.
comes down to the needs analysis. Sort of, as John was saying, if we look at best of breed, they've got 1,001 features that others don't necessarily have today, but will have in the coming years as more and more investment comes in and consolidation comes in. But typically, when we're talking to a customer, what they're actually looking from, say, an SSE point of view isn't as broad or as wide as what best in breed's going to give you. As we then sort of look towards the stack that they've already got investment in, that's typically where we start leading them down. And, we do a lot with Fortinet, where we've already got Fortinet on the edge. If their SSE requirements align with exactly what Fortinet's providing, then it makes sense to keep everything in-house. You're not looking at doing any new appliances or new VMs in the environment. You're utilizing your current investment and then just increasing the license count to get the newer features that you actually require.
Yeah. Tom, you have a view on how you'd select?
Well, I think you've got to get your current needs, aligned to the standard you're aligning to. So, is it ISO or the straight signals or whatever? So that's start at that base. What is the thing I'm trying to, what standard aligning to? Which tools get me there the fastest is what I find. Also, there's what I'm already invested in, and how does that roll into what I've got? But I think the other point there, David, you touched on it. What does the roadmap for the vendor look like? Because that increasingly becomes more important. You don't just buy a product, and it's amazing how many people think this. Like, they just buy the product and think it's done. No, you're buying into the future iterations. So you've got to really look at that closely, and you look at who's going to win in that consolidation race, right? You've got to make a judgment call. Which product will be bought out, or who's going to be the king? And am I going to be on the right track here? If I pick the right team, or I'm just going to be, hang on, I bought this one, but they're going to be bought out by another one. I'm going to be stuck with something I don't need. So that's pretty hard. Like, that requires a bit of judgment and maybe a bit guesswork as well.
Yeah, John, what's the Fortinet position on that? Maybe a chance for you to to provide some USPs if you want.
Look, we we offer our customers and partners a great value technology that solves a broad set of challenges. So at the founding of our business, the founders had a vision of consolidation and ease of management, whether you're an end customer, so you're a large enterprise, for instance, that had its own IT team, or whether you're a partner managing, lots of customers. So at the heart of what Fortinet does, it's all about a single operating system, running policies across a broad ecosystem of customers' estate or the partner's estate, and allowing things to be deployed, adjacencies, very simply, very quickly, to reduce complexity. Right? So our platform is integrated, and that's a key part of what we do. So when we do decide to invest in an area, for instance, in a SASE, it is a logical extension. We started in firewalls, and we ship 54% of the world's firewalls globally. That is, been top right for quite some time. We then moved into SD-WAN. We weren't a leader in SD-WAN at the time. Some of the frontier companies were, the likes of Viptela and Velo. But over time, we've now become and sat in the top right quadrant for a long time as SD-WAN leaders. And now we've moved into SASE. So, the platform's been designed and built in such a way through our operating system, through our custom chips that we self-manufacture and design to add these adjacencies. So when we do sit with our customers, we can say, look, we'll take you through, the 3 to 5 year journey. We'll show you how we can help you rationalize, consolidate. We'll show you how we can help you deploy and manage effectively and efficiently, and start taking out some of the complexity, perhaps the finger pointing by having, multiple best of breed technologies, different licensing, different contract risks, different partners managing different parts of your estate. So all these things come in because, I think what we have seen, Josh, with technology is, customers do invest, and they do, often not get the return on investment, right? So, hardware doesn't get deployed, software licenses don't get activated, cloud EAs go unused, and all these sorts of things, because it just gets really hard to put together. So in terms of our platform, it's built with a view of consolidation, adding adjacencies, and when Fortinet decides to invest, which we do continually, it starts becoming, a very nice add-on and adjacency that can be, essentially plugged in like a Lego brick on a Lego stack to make that management and ultimately, solve the outcome for the customer.
Yeah, no, not nicely said. In our chat, our extensive briefing, John, that we always have for the hours that we prepare for the show, you mentioned the increased risk profile from a customer point of view with AI on, both sides of the fence, and something around, was it 384 CVEs in 24 hours or something? Do you want to maybe, let's talk a bit about that, about the new risk profile?
Look, I think, if we start once again at the customer, the attack surface is expanding infinitely. And there's no signs that's going to decrease. So, and, if we think about a lot of, factors driving that, take connected devices, OT, explosion in OT. So you've just got tons and tons, literally millions and tens of millions of assets, out in the wild somewhere being connected. And these assets are really critical. We look at the explosion of network, organizations using hundreds of applications on average, and, hyperscalers and, DevOps creating new applications constantly. We look at work from anywhere, work from home. So the attack surface just continues to expand infinitely. So that makes it a challenge. What we do see often is for human behaviour or poor hygiene, we often let attackers in. So it's not the defences, it's just, people are tired. The bad threat actors are now so sophisticated that this looks so legitimate. An invoice looks incredible thanks to ChatGPT, and someone says, oh, well, click, done, and, the bad guys are in. So customer level threat landscape ever evolving. At the vendor level, there's so many vendors involved in the ecosystem, and many of us have been around for a long time. Fortinet's been around for 2.5 decades. So CVEs are a challenge for the industry, and we're constantly on the defensive and making sure that we're deploying our resources to ensure that CVEs do occur, which they do. We respond very quickly and with transparency and shut them down. Look, CVEs. A challenge, hundreds and hundreds of them daily across, literally thousands of vendors in the ecosystem. I can point to perhaps some of our own data around CVEs. We self-report about 90% of them. So, what we do is we run robust checks, and when we discover something, we'll work with affected customers, self-report and say, hey, look, we've discovered this vulnerability. Please go out and attend to it. Here's the patch, here are the details. Then we announce publicly. Every now and then, a couple get out of the wild as they do for all vendors. So we jump on those as quickly as possible. But no doubt, I think the message is for customers, you've got to be, have really robust systems in place to deal with these things. As vendors announce the CVE, similarly for your partners, you've just got to be catching and aware, just having things up to date with your vendors, whoever they might be. So make sure your SOC's plugged in, make sure your head of security is plugged in, because what we do find, Josh, is that if CVEs occur, sometimes it's just, the email notification that went to someone who's on holidays or might have left the business, 3 months ago, and it's sort of sitting in someone's inbox unactioned, and that's often where the most damage occurs.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask a dumb question. CVE, what is that? Take us through that.
It's a critical vulnerability. So you've got bad threat actors out there, Tom, each and every day, just pouring over the global internet, looking for for a little crack to exploit and get through. So many of them are they could be nation states. They could be just bad threat actors that are doing it for profit, and they're looking all over the world, and some of the defences include having, robust security operations and, extended EDR, MDR, XDR, running SOCs. But pulling all this together is a key part of, the defence posture of customer partners and vendors as well. Unfortunately, though, there's a lot of money in being a bad guy. So, that threat's not going to go away.
Yeah, Dave, what's your recommendation around addressing CVEs?
Yeah, look, I think, the easiest solution is follow maturity level 2 for the ASD's Essential 8. That's going to give you the biggest upstart. And, we look at that from the SMB all the way to enterprise. But then, touching upon what John's mentioned, it's around having a strong perimeter security. It's around having strong SOC SIEM in place as well, so you can analyze and identify. And it comes down to reassessing your attack surface and making sure that you've got your attack surface covered.
Yeah, no, that's good. All right, so AI, John. So there's a couple of new products, Fortinet have announced, so FortiAI and FortiGuard AI. So do you want to maybe tell us a bit about how FortiGate's meeting this the AI challenge?
Yeah, so Fortinet is in a strong position of having a ton of data. So having 54% of the world's firewalls gives us incredible telemetry and metrics on global networks and global threats. So through our 40 labs, we get a huge amount of telemetry. I think one of the benefits as well of being in the industry for a long time is that we've got a huge amount of source data to train our models on. So Fortinet's been running AI over our data for the best part of a decade. I think going back to 2013, 2014. So we've been analysing and using AI to make our products more robust, for more than a decade. And, if we think about AI just sort of more broadly and parking Fortinet or cyber, when we look at the costs involved of training these large language models, whether it is for a chat GPT or Google, etc., the huge cost is actually taking a whole heap of source data and training that and processing it. Fortinet's had the benefit of our own proprietary data, customer data in this instance, for 2.5 decades. So we've been using AI, and you're starting to see AI coming through in all our technologies. So we want to make AI a core part of what we do, and it's coming through our entire technology stack. Josh, you're seeing it in our products. We want to make it easier for our customers and partners to be able to query things. So you'll see it in our SecOps. We want to use AI to detect threats earlier. We want to use AI across our own ecosystem to make our own internal defenses more robust. So it's a core part of what we do, but ultimately, we need to use AI. Some examples, with our SOAR technology, we can run scripts really quickly to patch, essentially put a virtual patch over things. Using our AI, customers and partners can, query logs and just go bang, down literally, summarize, tell me where the problem's at, taking a whole heap of time and cost out of this, because what we do know is the industry short on skilled resources, and, we're under the pressure of having to act really quickly. So the AI journey is something we've been on for 10 or 11 years.
What do you mean by virtual patch? What does that do? How does that work?
Let's just say you need to patch some devices, but you don't have time at the moment. You can't cut over because you can't get access to the endpoint, or you have to predefine cutoff windows. You can run a script through our SOAR, and essentially it can just run a virtual patch until you actually perform the patch itself. So just to provide a stopgap, that can be done in a really quick automated way. And ensure that you've got coverage until you can actually perform the surgery itself, if you will.
Yeah, and Dave, one thing is the we've mentioned before, the SOCI, the Security of Critical Infrastructure Act, has got a much broader scope now, and then this sort of IT OT trend. So John mentioned before about the broadening of the threat landscape, but this operational technology space is really broadening, and be keen to hear from you and John on what some of the best approaches in protecting the IT OT landscape.
Yeah, look, I guess from my perspective, it's following the waterfall model when it comes to OT for critical infrastructure. And, Fortinet do play quite a large part in that, in segregating and layering out the OT network into a predefined state. Be interesting to see sort of how machine learning and AI comes into that space as well. But I think, Fortinet's always been an OT trusted partner in that space.
Yeah, John?
Yeah, look, we certainly seeing strong growth in OT security requirements. One of the challenges of OT is its criticality in nature, but also, OT and IT networks are converging. So, think of, I don't know, I'm sitting in a 28 level building, think of the lift shafts and all the systems driving that. It's an OT asset. Think of an automated train hauling, iron ore for a miner, a train substation. So, there's so many OT assets, in the healthcare sector, machines connected to the internet. It just goes on and on and on. And often we're seeing the blurring of OT and IT networks now. Often disparate teams in the customer. So, one team looking after OT, one team looking after IT. One of the challenges as well with OT is that some of these systems just can't go offline because they aren't needing to go 24/7, 365 days a year. So then how do you remediate or put some protections around that to ensure that OT asset doesn't go down? So OT, so as Dave said, SOCI Act, best practice, there's Purdue model, which is quite common. There's a lot of complexity in that. So, for instance, having visibility of your OT environment is a key, and there's really, really good visibility vendors. But then also having the ability to enforce is another aspect, and that's where Fortinet partners really well. So we provide the hardware, the ruggedized versions of our technology, which provide enforcement, plugging in the visibility to ensure that there's a holistic, cyber secure environment of those OT assets. But it is it's a really, really interesting area. And if we think about the future, some of what we're seeing, with our customers and partners, ambulances, you think about all these vehicles on mining sites across Australia, you think about buses, trains, trams, medical equipment, robotics in warehouses. It's endless, Josh, how many challenges, this is going to pose and for cybersecurity.
Yeah, and it seems one of the biggest challenges you mentioned is people, finding skilled people. That seems to be a big challenge. Tom, you from a customer side?
Yeah, obviously, right, and the cost of those people as well, right? So you can't just throw people at these problems, as every CIO will tell you. It's not just get more people, and they'll magically solve this problem. So you've got to work with people like yourself, Josh. I suggest to try and solve this problem. But yeah, and the other problem with people is they need to stay on top of the changes in this space as well. So it's just a very difficult environment to maintain and stay on top of. I don't know. Are you guys saying that it's easier to employ people at the moment, or is there still a huge demand in this space, right?
If I could comment on that one. Oh, sorry, Josh, could I just?
No, go
I
for
think
it.
it's just really important point that Tom raised around people. So one of the key challenges around technology is actually having skilled operatives, and that's really difficult. So if we just imagine a typical customer environment where they have dozens and dozens of vendors, often best of breed. So customers and partners need to maintain certifications to ensure that those people are skilled enough to actually implement that technology to achieve the customer outcomes. And so that training burden is enormously costly, enormously costly. And often what happens is, and what we see out in industry is, someone might become really proficient at a certain technology, and then the market comes knocking and says, Tom, you've just become such an expert on deploying this particular technology that we'll pay you a lot more money. So, that customer or partner loses, that individual, or, sometimes a group of individuals say, hey, look, we're really, really solid practitioners at this technology. So, a few of us are going to go off and create our own consultancy or, MSP or something like that, right? So that's a huge challenge, and getting back to taking costs out, achieving outcomes, reducing complexity. One of the benefits of consolidation is the ROI that Fortinet, for instance, offers on engineers. So because we've got a platform that's fully integrated, you're spreading the risk profile across a number of people, plus also that engineer can be skilled across multiple technologies on our stack, as opposed to having lots of different engineers and going, look, we're not quite sure that, we can get this engineer to the, requisite level of point vendor A because we just don't have enough of it in our estate, and so on and so forth. So, the actual deployment piece is something that's really key, Tom. And sorry, Josh, I just thought it was really important to note because, and I know in partner land dealing with many of our partners, when they look at sort of column A, all the vendors that they have in their, in their ecosystem, and then if you imagine sort of columns B across, being January, February, March, all the way through the end of the year, and then they list all the training requirements of each vendor. And then, our partners look at that and, tear their hair out and go, oh my Lord, all my team would be doing would be training instead of working with our customers, instead of deploying, managing, scoping, giving advice, doing advisory work. So that's another really critical part of the industry, and why consolidation is really critical. So you can get the return on investment on your people. And then if one person does leave, if you've got two or three others that can manage a broad part of your stack, you're reducing your risk on that one individual, but also you're getting a much, much higher return on investment on those critical skilled resources that everyone's struggling to find, Tom.
Yeah, really good, John. It was worth getting you on for just that, I think. Dave, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think it's exactly as John said. It's, from the MSSP land and the system integrator land, we want to be a jack of all trades. But with that, we also want to be the SMEs. And when it comes to looking at the multiple technologies in the market and the multiple vendors in the market, being the SME for vendors and then getting the broad range of technology makes our life a lot easier. Instead of, looking at Zscaler, looking at Netscope, looking at Fortinet, looking at Cisco, we can only have a finite number of resources that are actually SMEs across the board. So it allows us to focus, allows us to really hone our skills, allows us to work with the vendor to get that material from trusted vendors that deliver it well. So it works really well. And then I guess coming back to that from a hiring perspective, we can clearly show them what we're looking to do from training, what we're looking to upskill them in, and directly align with their previous experience to make sure we're bringing SMEs into the team.
Now, one of the things I see seems to be driving investment is governance and compliance. Interested in everyone's view. Dave, I mean, our team has really been built around
day in, day out.
GRC capabilities. So do you want to maybe talk about some of the options and maybe some advice to people who are listening around which way to go and, some pragmatic advice?
Yeah, look, I think, AI has led the way for a lot of what we're doing at the moment. And then, if we look at things like ISO 27001 being a requirement for a lot of contracts and new business these days, they're probably the two largest market forces that we see for us. And realistically, it comes into cleaning data. So making sure that we've got data governance across the board, not just for your on-prem and SharePoint repositories, but also what you're allowing to go into your third-party applications and how you're managing it as you start getting that ecosystem sprawl. And then from there, making sure that we've got classification, making sure that we've got DLP in place. So we kind of go through a few phases of cleaning the data and managing the data from a data governance, classifying and being able to identify data through e-discovery, and then applying DLP across the board from there. And I think, as we look at DLP, typically we look at, don't send that email, don't have that information. But really that's expanded now into the CASB and the SSE components of what are you actually uploading to those third-party systems. It's gone a lot further than just layer 7 now. We're not looking to just block ChatGPT, but we actually want to understand what the content that you're putting into these LLMs or what you're putting into Facebook Messenger, and only blocking what is going to be sensitive to the business.
So, John, thanks, Dave. You also seen governance driving investment?
Yeah, absolutely. Data is the absolute goal of everything that we do. It's what we're actually trying to, in most instances, protect outside of OT assets that are critical. So, into that end, Fortinet acquired a business called NextDLP in 2024.
Excellent. Oh, well, thank you. It looks like as always, we've run out of time very easily. I do at some point want to go through SASE, SSE, ZTNA. It's confusing. I think everyone's confused, but we won't have time today. But I think, I'm with you, Tom. It's confusing. But John, thank you so much for joining the podcast. Do you have any final words and how people can reach out if they want to?
Yeah, sure. Look, I'm always happy to chat to anyone in the industry. I think just in terms of, customers and partners out there, just do real thorough due diligence on your vendors. Ask them, what their investment looks like in country, in region, things like support, the quality and qualifications of their partners, how they can help with that sort of reducing risk, reducing costs, but yet delivering, the agility that customers need. So there's a lot of due diligence in that, I think. I'd just say that, analyst reports are obviously, about the future, but, start perhaps, being involved in some of those conversations with the Gartners, the Canalys, because they do have merit, and these decisions will impact a customer environment a lot sooner than we think. So talk to your partners, and we're always happy to chat about best of breed versus platform. There's no silver bullet for anyone. Sometimes the former is better than the latter, and vice versa. But it's just do your homework because the outcomes are just too important to risk. Fortinet's here. We've got nearly 300 people in country in Australia, ready to help our customers and partners. and I'm happy to speak to anyone that would like to reach out directly, or LinkedIn, or hit me up via you guys, Josh.
Thanks, John. No, really appreciate your time. Dave, any final words for us?
No, I guess if you want to get an early start on the podcast and talk ZTNA, hit up Imperium. More than happy to go through it with you and see where it would fit into your ecosystem.
Thanks, Dave. Tom, as
No,
always.
I appreciate it. Appreciate the insight, John and David. It's really good. Trying to stay on top of the acronyms. It's my job, number one job. And if you could just speak a bit slower for us people as well, it would be great.
So I think the CIO's job is to be one acronym ahead of the board in the board meeting.
Yeah, that's easy.
Yeah. No, well, thanks everyone. Thanks all for listening. Hopefully you had you got some. I think there's some really good insights there from John and David and Tom. So I appreciate you listening. If you want to reach out, you can hit me up on LinkedIn or at jrubens@imperiumit.com.au. Tom and Dave are also available on LinkedIn. Thanks very much for listening. See you soon out there.